I'd like to welcome everybody here to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners, and today is February 6th, 2018. Will the meeting come to order, please? Let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So if you look at the agenda review, are there any additions or changes or anything there?
Moved it.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes today.
I knew there was.
Okay, anybody else?
I'll move it, yeah.
I'll second that.
We have a motion for approval and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So the first item of business here for action we've got up on is the Government Center Project Bid Awards. We've got Mr. John Pristash. How do you say that? Pristash. With Kraus Anderson Construction Company, who we've hired to help us with this enormous project. Welcome.
Thank you.
Morning, John.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
Good morning.
Morning.
So let me get my iPad to work correctly here. There we go. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got some great news, I think, to report this morning. The bids came in almost exactly where we thought they would, maybe even slightly under budget. So that was really encouraging news. When we kind of got on board and started working with ISG back in July, we had planned to do this in January timeframe, knowing that we'd get probably the most competitive bids for the year, and everybody held to schedules and worked together real well, and we were able to capitalize on that. So I applaud the team for that. We had 29 packages that we bid out, and we got over 100 bids, so we had very good coverage, a very competitive bidding process, which was also encouraging. You have the board report there, but our current project cost based on the bids received is $22,588,319, and that would allow us to have $1.4 million in contingency for maybe some unforeseen circumstances or things that could come up in the construction process. And that's about 6.2% of the overall cost. That is traditionally a little bit more than maybe what we would need for contingency on this type of project. So there's a couple of considerations there for building out the restrooms in the basement. Alternate number 1, that would be $129,819. And then there's an alternate number 10 for fitting up the rest of the basement that would help with some of the relocation work that we have for staff when we go into the renovation phase, and that is $174,521. So if we were to include those items in the project as well, that would leave us with $1,107,341 in contingency, which is about 4.8% of the overall project cost. But oftentimes that contingency is considered based just on the hard construction costs, and that would put us at about 6.3%, which is a pretty comfortable percentage for this kind of project. So we're still working through some of the bids. We've got some just some scope review to do with some of the trades, but we've provided you with a list today of the items or the contractors highlighted in yellow there that we would like you to approve for us to move forward and issue contracts to, totaling about $15,746,267. And I guess I'd like to highlight out of that is that 9 of those firms are local to the Mankato area, which is really encouraging. About $5,648,662 will stay local with the contractors in town here, which is really a great accomplishment from everybody, and we're real happy to see a lot of quality firms that are putting their hands into this job. And that's about 34%, even a couple clicks higher than what we presented of the total contracts awarded. So that's really good. Over a third of the companies there will be local to the area. So that's kind of the summary. I don't know if there's any questions that you have.
Well, just the final total is $17,493,000 for today's action, I believe. Is that with those other 2 contingencies, alternate summary?
Well, the $17,493 is the total of all the bids. but I don't know if you have this yellow highlighted sheet
Yep,
here.
Yeah.
we got it.
Yeah.
What we're seeking approval today on is just the firms in yellow because they've been
Oh, I see.
reviewed and vetted out.
I getcha.
The other ones we're comfortable with, there's no issues there, but we just gotta dot some i's and cross some t's with those folks, and then we'd come for the balance of the approval at the next meeting.
On the alternate summary, you have two yellowed out things with building controls and hoisting by contractor. Are you asking for those to be approved, or what's?
Those alternates are in the base numbers that we're presenting, so those are kind of, those were not choices, so to speak. You know, we had alternate 6 and alternate 7, we had bid 2 different manufacturers for the control system, but you would have needed one or the other in the building no matter what, and so we took the most cost-effective choice there, obviously. And then alternate number 11, we were looking at putting a tower crane on the job. If we provided it as a CM, the numbers didn't come out to where that made sense, and so we asked each contractor to provide their own hoisting, and it worked out best for the county.
So we're not doing 11 at all.
We are doing 11.
We are.
Yep, we're paying the contractors to provide their own
We're paying
hoisting.
the contractors to do the hoisting.
Yep.
Is that over and above what the original cost is, or the $1.5 million in savings is then, or is that, I'm seeing alternate meaning extra. Is
Yeah.
that extra?
No, in this case, alternate 7 and alternate 11 were more
Part of the
part of the
bids.
base job.
The base
Yes, you had to
bidding.
provide hoisting one way or the other, and we put an alternate together just to make sure we had the most cost-effective method. And our tower crane to put up as the CM was more like $400,000, and so it made sense for the contractors to do their own hoisting.
Instead of having one permanently in place.
Yeah,
they
instead of
all
having us
utilize.
direct one that, you know, everybody could use, it just didn't work out financially, that it made sense for each person to kind of bring in their own equipment.
So they get paid accordingly to do all their own hoisting.
You got
They
it.
have to do.
The other alternates, are these extras? Like the full generator system, which is about $500,000,
Yes,
that's an extra?
yes.
So that would help fill in that 1.5 million down to maybe $1 million in savings, correct?
Yeah, right. You know,
And
what
then,
we kind
and then
of,
we're talking about some fixing up of the basement. That's an extra.
yeah, the basement work would be the alternate number 1 and alternate number 10. Alternate 1 is the restrooms for the basement, and alternate 10 is the rest of the balance of the basement fit up. And so those would be the first 2 alternates that I think that we'd recommend to move forward with today, I think, at this time, just to capitalize on those numbers.
So add those back in.
Yeah, I would say that.
So, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, yeah, there's really 4 of those items on the alternate list that we're presenting today to be included in the actions proposed from the board. So, alternate 1 being the restrooms, we're asking the board to authorize us moving ahead with that. Alternate 10, the basement fit up, would also be part of that request. And then, as John was saying, alternate 7 and alternate 11 were kind of base bid items, but bid separately just so that we could see
Right.
against other costs that were anticipated.
Well, I'm wondering if I should entertain a motion so that we can discuss it as a board too, for these, for all of the contracts that came in, for these bids. And that way we can discuss it amongst us too. So I'd entertain a motion.
I would move approval of the recommended contracts.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. And that, just for clarification then, that includes the restroom fix-up, which is not highlighted in yellow, and the build-out for the basement, which is not included in the yellow highlight.
Correct. That's correct. I'm using the bid summary sheet on the top. So just a clarification, and I'm sure it's because the number's not the same from the
Right.
bottom to the top, and that's because of contingencies.
When you say the bottom.
Alternate 1 restroom fit up is 126 on the bottom, and up on the top, alternate restrooms is 129.
What number is that? Where are you looking at?
If I go to the
Oh, I see. Yeah.
summary,
Yeah.
and then I go to the summary page that you have for us, John.
The first page that we have,
Yep.
those are on there.
Yeah, the numbers don't match.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
just curious.
and what's happening there, Kip, is that we're working through some sales tax
Oh, that's right,
savings
okay.
with a couple contractors to where when we capitalize on that savings, it should go down to 126.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I was just, I thought maybe it was a contingency.
Is there
Thank you
mo-
for that clarification.
Yep.
My whole concern is in so many times in government, you start seeing a savings, something like this, and people are concerned that government fills that savings in. Well, okay, we got a savings, so let's spend more money. I have a concern with that. I mean, we have a savings of 1.5 million. That means a lot to the citizens of Blue Earth County. All of a sudden, you know, I understand the restroom fit up and I understand the build out of the basement. It's $300,000. Well, $300,000 is almost a levy point for Blue Earth County. And I'm not happy about it because all of a sudden, oh, we got a savings of 1.5 million and all of a sudden we're filling this savings in. And people are consistently complaining about government doing that. I understand it. I'm not happy about it. I'll vote for it, but I will be watching to make sure that the county doesn't come out and keep on trying to fill it in and make a Taj Mahal out of a government center.
And just to follow up with that too, if you don't mind, just mention something. Some of these things we thought were going to be able to fit into that 24 million. You know, the generator system. I talked with Bob yesterday a little bit, and instead of having every single outlet live and able when there's a power outage, there's a creative way of doing it so that just particular, you pick and choose emergency areas, maybe one or two PCs in each department, and maybe some, you have to have meetings and discuss, which outlets are going to stay live.
Right, correct.
So that way we don't have to have a larger or a double generator system at the building. But that originally was in the costs. I think we were going to get a generator, I think, when we first talked, didn't we, Bob?
That was the original plan, to have a full backup generator as opposed to a life safety generator,
Yeah.
which is where we're at now.
Okay, and I'm familiar with that too. We did that working at the state hospital. We had certain colors on the outlets, so you knew exactly which ones were your emergency outlets if there was a power outage.
Right. And
we would have computers plugged in there that were very pertinent to the daily operation of the business.
Yep.
And so, so that's a big saving. That's $500,000 right there that came off of what we thought we were going to probably get anyway.
Yes. Yep, exactly.
Okay. And I think we decided just to put those bathrooms, you added those bathrooms because if we're going to have the basement down there, might as well have the bathrooms available for people to utilize if we need to use them down there.
Yeah,
so.
I think code would require that you have the bathrooms
Bathroom.
down there if you have
Okay.
people down there, so.
Okay.
The two kind of go hand in hand.
The only other question I had brought up that I was concerned was the size of the elevator. Maybe you heard. I don't know if Bob mentioned anything to you, but I looked at the price and it was pretty good price. It was only like $87,000 or $88,000. That was for labor and and I thought, wow, that's kind of it must be a small elevator. So then I found out it is fairly small. I mean, it's not teeny, but I don't think you could fit more than 4 people in there. It's 6'8" wide by 5'5" deep. And I was just hoping that if there was any way that could be squeezed out, another foot or something in depth for a lot of people that might have some of these oversized wheelchairs and things like that. And I've looked at some of the detail on that, but it's going to be a little tight for some folks that use it, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, demand anything as I can't. I mean, I just can't, but I really wish we would have looked at different sizes to see what the cost would have been.
Sure.
The difference.
Yep.
For the shafting and everything. It would have been just having a little bit larger for folks that we have that might be utilizing our services. The one thing that we don't have to demand to have a larger elevator as a board necessarily is because we've got the ramp,
Right.
which has 2 floors that come across.
Correct.
So if they park in the ramp, they don't even need to use the elevator. They can just so it's mainly for people that enter on the first floor that require to come up to the second or
Exactly right.
third floor to get to see things.
Right.
And so, or to work, do business up there. So I could see we have alternate routes that would be okay for handicapped
Well,
folks.
it's something certainly we could price up and kind of look at for you if it's something you're interested in. There's no harm in doing that.
Just to see what it
Just
might
to see
cost
what it would be.
as you go through
Yeah.
this, because I know we haven't started the building yet, so.
Yeah.
But, so if it was 6'8" wide, even if it was just a foot deeper, I don't know what sizes they come up with. I know they custom make them, but if they have a standard size that is the one size up, that goes a little deeper, maybe it wouldn't cost much. I don't know.
Yeah.
We might take the same mechanics. Who knows?
Yeah.
It might take.
It might take a little bigger shaft, which is fine. When
Yeah,
it's
it
done
might.
on paper, it's easy to do at this point. So
There's room for bigger shaft.
I think there is. Yeah, we'd have to work with ISG for sure, but I think when you're talking that kind of space, there's some things that can be
Sure.
jostled around a little bit. No problem. Yeah.
Just to look at it.
Yeah, this is
I don't know,
yeah. I was just gonna say,
Go ahead,
this
Mark.
is ADA qualified or
It is ADA compliant.
compliant,
right now.
so.
Yep, it is.
Okay.
And that, so that size is, I don't know how they figure that.
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine they've
Take the
tested
number of
it,
people
checked
and-
it, make sure it works.
Yeah, you can fit it there.
I certainly, think that this one should be adequate if it passes the ADAs, and I don't know if, another foot, but, because then we might be talking different shaft sizes, the ones we have here seem to be working fine. I haven't personally run into
Yeah, I
an
don't-
issue, but I'm not here a lot, so I can't say for sure, but if it's ADA compliant, I certainly could support leaving it the way it is and moving forward
I'd
today.
have to double check. It might even be a little larger than the
Oh.
minimum code
Oh,
requirements,
wow.
so I think we even maybe exceed it by just a
Yeah.
little bit. Not that it couldn't be larger, but I think it does exceed the ADA.
Yeah.
I guess I'm comfortable with the size it is. My brother was the proverbial quadriplegic that we worry about, and he had the wheelchair.
The big one that tilts way back and it
Yeah.
takes about 6 feet?
No, he
Doesn't
many times he would visit our church, and our church was a 4x4 elevator.
Oh, okay.
And he and his wife could ride comfortably in that 4x4. I mean, yes, he had to sit.
He had to put it up
sit
already.
straight up and stuff
Okay,
like
yeah.
that. But
They usually do anyway.
so I
Okay.
mean, and that was a 4x4, not so.
Wow.
I'm comfortable with
Amazing.
the size, so
Okay.
just from personal experience.
Okay.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Any other issues of concern, or after looking at all the numbers that we've got on there, is there something somebody wanted added in, or? I was comfortable with not having to have the concrete stairs. I've seen some ramps with the nice steel and iron stairs, and they seem to look pretty nice. Some of them do.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can work along those contingencies later. We need to get these ones that are in yellow going today so we can get the project on schedule.
And if,
and
and if
I
we
would-
have, go ahead.
You go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, and if we have any problems, we might need a contingency.
Right.
It comes along, so it's not like we're trying to build a Taj Mahal, because that would have been in the plans already.
Yeah.
And this is just contingent little small things items.
I mean, what we usually recommend is that we kind of get both buildings out of the ground. There's often some unknowns in the ground, and then,
Yeah.
there's one stage where you can kind of have a checkpoint and say, well, all right, we got out of the ground and we have this much contingency, and then you can make your decisions from there. Would be a good checkpoint for us.
I was happy to see the demolition. I expected that to come in higher.
Yeah, that is just the interior.
For the ramp.
Well, this is just the interior demolition
Oh, it
of the
is?
building. Yeah, the exterior is in the earthwork package just because it ends up being machines and that type of thing.
So what's the demolition on the ramp? Just curious, I mean, did you have any idea?
It wasn't broke out of the. out
It's
of the bid.
inside of
It's
the.
in the bid.
It's in the bid for that?
Yep,
Oh, okay, so they're
3180.
they're digging the basement and demoing the
Yes,
the
so that would
ramp
be a dirt
and
version.
excavating the dirt out underneath the ramp?
Yep.
Okay, okay.
Chair?
Interesting. Yes, yeah, Commissioner.
This was one of my, and I'm bringing up the restroom fit up and the build out of the basement. This was one of my concerns as we voted previously, and why I voted against that basement to start with, is I understood that, when you start, you save $1 million, we could have saved an extra $1 million off from this without that basement. That was the original request we had from administration without the basement. Obviously, they felt that we could have done this without the basement. But now that we got the basement, we feel that there's feelings that we have to put extra in. So not only would that have been $1 million savings, it'd been $1.3 million at this time. And what else is gonna come in the future because we have that basement? I mean, are we going to put another $3 or $4 million in it to build it out? My concern is we have to really watch, because this isn't our money that we're spending. This is our citizens' money, and I lost that.
You lost that
vote.
battle,
I lost
Commissioner.
that battle before, and I understand now that we have a basement and this is going to happen, but we really need to watch our money on this, so we don't just.
And we gotta move along here pretty quick, but since you said something about that, I think to defend some of the decision-making that we did on that too, was looking to the future and not having to add or do more building, and so there's two sides of that coin. And so
Costs
what
a
we're
lot
spending
more.
today is gonna be much less than what we might have to spend in the future. We're a hub here in southern Minnesota, and this will allow for some expansion if we need it in the future. And plus, I think it'll end up being utilized quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it's also cost-effective space too, because
It's
you
very
can
low.
use the foundation for the building for half of your exterior wall kind of
Yep.
thing, so it's.
So there's some positives to having this in there.
Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One last comment from me. I'm going to support this today. I think we're ready to go. But I would just like to kind of thank John and his staff, Bob and our staff.
Yes.
They've been working very hard on this. We sit here, we make this decision in a matter of 14 minutes. But this has had a lot of
Oh, this
work,
is-
a lot of effort put into it
Yeah.
by our consultants, ISG. Lots of different staff have looked at this and worked on this diligently since the bids came in. So I'm very confident that we got some good bids here and the numbers are ready to go, and I'm going to support this today.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'd like to say also thank you to Justin and Jeremy, who have been the primary on this, working with Bob and working with Tim and a lot of our folks, the department heads, and with us. You know, they've responded to some of our desires that we've expressed and tried to incorporate some differences maybe in the building, just to give it a little flair and maybe, but yet not too no Taj Mahal type things, So, yeah. So it'll be good for our community, good use. Anybody else have anything to say before we move ahead? Okay. So we have a motion to approve what they've got listed here, especially on the summary page, excuse me, is that what it's called? Yeah, bid summary page.
Yep.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, John.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thanks, John.
So now we're going to have Craig Austinson, our ditch manager, come forward, and we've got a final public hearing. So welcome to the hearing and acceptance. I'd like to open this up as a public hearing. Welcome to the hearing and acceptance of the contracted work being completed by Geislinger and Sons. It's for the improvement of the County Ditch 28. There's a sign-in sheet near the door. If you haven't already signed in, please do so. At this time, I'll ask Craig Austinson to give us the report on the judicial documents, and there will be time for people to give public comment on this. So,
Okay.
thank you.
For jurisdictional documents and notices, first of all, we have a hearing notice was mailed to landowners on January 16th, 2018. The hearing notice was also published in the on the Blue Earth County website on January 18th, 2018. Hearing notice was also posted at the courthouse. The purpose of this hearing today is to determine if Geislinger and Sons has completed their contract for the repair and improvement of the County Ditch 28. If the board finds that the Geislingers and Sons has satisfactorily completed the contract, it will accept the completed project and order the final payment to Geislinger and Sons. Today's hearing is only about Geislinger's and Sons contract. Due to ongoing litigation, we've been advised by our attorneys to avoid discussing other subjects. That's it for jurisdictional documentation.
Okay. And so you went through that list. Thanks, Craig. And then now I'd like to ask Chuck Brandel from ISG to present the engineer's report.
Good morning.
Hi,
Morning, Chuck.
Welcome.
I'll go through, I've got a short PowerPoint with some pictures. Like Craig said, and I just want to reiterate, we're only looking at the acceptance of the Geislinger contract, that everything was constructed appropriately and that it's completed. And if there are, and then we do have a public hearing that if there are things that landowners think that are missed, we can bring those in or address those. So, just a little bit of background. The CD28 watershed, it's about 3,800 acres. It's got an open ditch on the east end of it, and that all previously drained through a 36-inch metal pipe. That metal pipe was replaced with a 48-inch concrete and dual wall pipe. Brief history. The original system was an all-tile system constructed in 1912. 1981 there was an open ditch and the metal pipe outlet was improved. ISG was brought in 2000. There were some failures on the metal pipe that were repaired. 2009 there were some more failures. The improvement petition was submitted. The project accepted and bid. We had Vortex was the first contractor. Geislinger came in fall of 2016. And then they've completed their work fall of 2017. This map is part of the packet, and it shows the work that was done and what's abandoned. If I zoom in on that, the green lines represent tile that has been abandoned as part of the improvement, and then the purple line represents the tile that was improved and that we're asking for acceptance of the work. Geislinger's work also did include cleaning the open ditch, slough repairs, and some tile inlets, and then a structure at the outlet. Just some pictures. This is the flooding of 2016. I've got a bunch of pictures of Geislinger's construction. Here's the 48-inch concrete pipe. Here's a piece of the metal pipe that was found and obviously not in very good shape. Piece of the old concrete pipe that was found. More concrete pipe installation. This is the day that Geislinger made it to a point where they could start draining the flooded lands, and there's a short video, but this was December of 2016, showing that once we got it open, it really started rushing. So, a few more pictures. We have what's called an insertity. This was for a drop intake. This is when we got to the northern part of the pipe where we had dual wall pipe, some of the more HDPE dual wall pipe installation. You can see there's a lot more sand around the pipe. And in the as-built, we have identified where there's concrete pipe and where there's dual wall pipe. So if there's future repairs, 50 years from now, they can go back and say, we're repairing a plastic pipe or a concrete pipe. So that is in the as-built. Here's a picture of the weir at the outlet. There was a weir constructed that helped reduce some of the peak flows. Just more construction pictures, and we have hundreds of these from a documentation standpoint. We do have a spot where we had a construction joint. Since when Geislinger was hired in, they were somewhat of a time crunch to get the water flowing before we had freeze up. They had crews working from different directions, just showing that they lined up perfectly. So very good quality construction. Some pictures of cleaning the open ditch. We had some really wet areas. Might not be able to see this, but there's a pump in the trench box where they're pumping out water while they're in construction. Had a little area where we redid a crossing on the open ditch, and they temporarily dammed up the open ditch, put in the crossing, and then reopened that up. And then we televised all of the tile. We did find a couple areas that they had to come back and fix. They had a puncture on part of the 48-inch dual wall. They came in and replaced, put in an intake in that area and replace that damaged area. They also had a few connections that were protruding too far into the pipe. They went back into the pipe and cut those off. So we have inspected the pipe and the open ditch, and they have done all of the corrective work. Here's a picture of the open ditch from last fall. Here's the weir that was put in at the outlet just after it was finished. You can see there's a little bit of water held back behind it. The contract that was awarded to Geislinger was just over $2.8 million. Because some of the work was done in the winter, we actually saved on some erosion control items. We also, just working with them on connections and a few other things, we were able to, their final payment that's eligible, that we're asking for approval of is $2,255,332.33. So we had some savings during the project. Some of it was just that they were very fast. So we were able to, because we had some frozen conditions, we didn't have to do some of the erosion control items, and we were still in compliant with the MPCA.
Okay.
During construction, we kept track of damages. There were just under 92 acres of temporary damages that occurred during construction. We have those documented as part of the project. As the proceedings go forward with assessments and other things, that information will be is completed. This is the letter summary. I think I covered most of it. We do have one outstanding item. There's one subcontractor that is fighting with Geislinger right now. Geislinger has showed us that they paid that contractor. We were aware of the issues they had with that contractor, so they did not get an IC-134 from that contractor. We feel that the project is complete, that they can be paid, but I would like just a review by legal staff to make sure that we can make the final payment. A couple things: by approving the final acceptance, it starts the warranty period for Geislinger. The warranty period on this is 3 years. So even if there is a tile that was missed, or there's an area that maybe settles because of not good compaction, we have a 3-year warranty period from the time that you accept the project. So we recommend payment and final acceptance at this time.
Any questions? Should we open it up for? Okay. So thank you. We'll now open this for public comment. If there's anybody here, this is a hearing and it's being recorded, so please state your name and your address. And as a courtesy to others wishing to comment, please limit your comments to no more than 3 or 4 minutes. Also, please remember the purpose of this hearing is to approve the Geislinger and Sons contracted work on County Ditch 28. Please keep any comments of this work contractor and the completion of their work. Keep their work by their previous contractor and issues resulting from that work. We won't be addressing that today. Mainly just focusing on, the work that was completed on the ditch, and if we should issue the final payment. So, is there anybody here that would like to get up and state your name and where you live and say something about the project? I see we got several people here, so please feel free to come up to the podium and just share anything you've got, any questions on your mind. One more time, anybody else here that would like to come up and have public comment time? Well, if there's no other comments, we'll bring this issue before the board, and we have to take board action on the proposed findings here on this ditch project. Do we have to have 2 actions on this? Is there just one?
Just one.
Just one? Okay.
I move approval.
Second.
We've got a motion for approval and a second. Is there any discussion or any comments from the board?
I don't have any at this point. John summarized it pretty well, so.
Yeah, I summarized it. I know it was a challenging project out there in that Lincoln Township there.
Yep.
And I know that there's a lot of,
Mr. Chair, just for clarity purposes, I think we're asking for approval of the final payment contingent upon approval by our legal review,
Yeah.
given that
Contingent
issue
upon
with
that.
that one stop.
On the IC 134, there was additional language that was recommended that our Rinky Noonan asked us to add to the findings and order regarding the IC 134 and the fact that it has not yet been signed.
And that's my motion, yes.
And that's my second.
okay. All right. So that's with the contingency that it has a legal review. Is there any other discussion or comments related? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So let's return back to the board meeting then. And you've got some business to do there, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, one here.
Yep.
You notice in your packet, you actually have two grant agreements. There's one of them for the ditches, and the other one, I guess, planning and zoning is bringing the other one later on today. They look almost identical, so it's not one report in twice. It's actually two agreements. This is for a records art grant agreement with Bowser Board of Water and Soil Resources for the record modernization grant. The grant is an amount of $45,000, and this is a one-to-one match. We have to find additional funds from other sources, and that was part of the agreement. Well, the action requested today is we request the board sign and attach Bowser agreement and make a motion to appoint Blue Earth County Ditch Manager as the authorized representative and the Blue Earth County Directory of Taxpayer Services as the authorized signer for financial documents.
All right. What was the pleasure of the board?
We'll move approving the authorization.
I'd second it.
Okay. So this is for the grant agreement with Bowser, correct?
Yes.
And and you're asking for the authority then to be the authorized signer on this grant?
Okay.
Is that what that's?
Well, we have
There's
a couple
two things.
things going on here. We have the grant agreement, which needs to be approved by the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have also had by motion, just just a motion to appoint someone who's actually going to be the authorized representative and someone who's going to be actually signing the financial documents.
Okay.
If you look at their regulations, there has to be two different people, and
Okay.
you assign it by position, not by name.
Okay. So should we
want
approve
two
the grant
motions or-
first?
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering. We should do that first.
Okay.
And then we'll move forward with
Yeah.
what we have on the table. So we put that on the table for a minute, if that's okay? How do we do that? Because we already had a
that's what I
motion.
thought, yeah.
Because I was assuming we were also working on the grant
Yeah.
approval. So I'm sorry there's some confusion. So
Yeah, I know when you read it now,
So-
it's just authorization.
do we need a separate action for the authorization for the signing? That's what my question
Yeah.
is.
Can we table this and then?
I think you could do
No.
one motion to approve the grant and authorize signature.
And authorization? Is that all right?
Pat's
saying
yes.
That's-
All right.
Pat's
Yeah.
nodding his head over there, so, okay.
So that's what we got on the table.
Okay, so now we're gonna also,
All right.
can you mention something about the grant itself then too? Talk about the matching dollars and things like that we have to come up with.
Yeah, we have to come up with some matching, and it could be staff time, could be just actually, charging
Administrative and-
things to ditches, administrative costs. There's a number of ways we can get to that matching grant, that
Okay.
match. So exactly how we're gonna get there, of course, it's still a little undetermined because we don't know like how many hours staff time
Right,
is gonna be
it's
taking.
gonna take quite a bit
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
And so this is for the modernization of the records that we have for our ditches throughout the entire county.
Yes.
And so what we want to do is this is going to be like probably a lot of scanning, a lot of trying to have a program where it's easy for people to access those records and to utilize the
Yeah. We've
data
already
we have.
scanned everything, but
we-
it's not in a very usable format. That's
Okay.
what we're mainly trying to get it, so people can actually look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just big, huge files, and you have to go kind of scroll through everything. That's one of the
I
things.
see.
That's one of the what we're doing. Also, we're looking at GIS, updating a lot of information. We have, of course, the state of Minnesota, MinGeo came up with a new template for what they want to see from ditch layers, and so we'd be adapting to that. Plus, we probably would be expanding, actually putting additional information that we'd use and be more actually usable for an engineer too.
Okay.
Also, so when people look up online, they could, the information's right there.
And just, is there anybody else that, so we have a motion and we have a second actually for this then? The entire piece. And is there anybody has any other questions or comments about the grant as it's stated? Modernization grant?
No. I think it'll be a great asset to our drainage division, so.
Okay. Okay.
You
Yeah.
can look it up the files and more user-friendly, or?
I hope so. I know that the only thing goes through my mind is, will this, is there any downside to this? Like, we're getting this grant from Bowser, so what is it that they get out of this deal? I'm just trying to figure it out.
Bowser?
Yeah. You know,
Bowser, of course, they're part of it is because they have MinGeo has set up they'd be able to pull information from the state a little bit better, but at the same time, we use the information, we'll be using it for all kinds of stuff. Hopefully, in the long run, it'll actually reduce the cost of some of our doing initial reports and stuff. I know Chuck is here. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
yeah, go
quickly.
ahead, come on up to the podium.
Yeah. Chuck Brandel again. I think it'll be a great asset. One of the counties that we do work for, Jackson County, they brought all their maps into a digital format.
Okay.
And they put them into a GIS format, and they actually have that available on their website. I think it's a good example. It's not exactly the MinGeo example, but when we do a feasibility study or a repair, it saves us time. That saves the landowners time, because all of that information is in one spot instead of us gathering it from 3 different spots, putting it together.
Okay.
We have it available and ready to go.
Okay.
So it saves time on potential improvements and repairs.
There's no protected information and then a concern of just asking, that's the question I have, kind of like.
Oh, protected information?
If there's anything at all, like certain landowners or
The
anything
plan
like
is to only put what is already public information.
information.
It's just making it more accessible.
That's my question.
Make it
Okay.
easier to get a hold of.
that? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That helps clarify, don't you think, a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so,
Thank you.
thanks, Chuck. Bring it back here then, is there anything else? Okay,
Nope.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries, and thanks a lot, Craig, for coming forward with this.
Craig.
Okay, so the next item we've got on our agenda this morning, we've got Veteran Services Transportation Fee. We've got Michael McLaughlin here, our Veteran Services Officer. Come on up.
Morning, Michael.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Mike. Hey, Mike.
Couple of tough
Just give everybody a minute to clear out a room here. Okay.
Mike.
Well, good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for giving me a few moments to speak about some potential changes to our transportation program that the Veteran Services Department offers. A little history on the program. Some years back, both counties, Nicollet and Blue Earth, entered into kind of a cooperative transportation agreement. Blue Earth County transports area veterans from both counties on odd days of the week, and Nicollet County transports on even days of the week. And with that cooperative agreement, one thing that never came into cooperation or line was the donations that were requested of the riders between the two counties. Blue Earth County had always had a policy of just accepting any donation for those that didn't receive VA travel reimbursement pay, and for those that did receive VA travel reimbursement pay, that we would request that that be donated to support the program. Where Nicollet County had always done a donation of $10 every time. So that led to a little confusion when that cooperative agreement set out. It's just kind of a program both current departments inherited. So with that, we were looking at trying to streamline some of our services and get both county governments on the same page. Also, a recent change too, as of June 15th of 2017, the VA no longer does direct cash payments of those travel reimbursements to veterans that ride any of our transportation programs, which means they get a direct deposit reimbursement from the VA, which sometimes can take up to 3 weeks. So if somebody was to rely on that VA transportation reimbursement to donate to the programs and doesn't have the funds to float it, so to say, they would be in kind of a adverse economic situation. So that created some issues here when that went online this summer. Kind of watching those trend lines since that too as well. The amount of donated funds both counties have collected has been on the decline, which we kind of expected with that new direct deposit, just because the funds aren't as readily available for the riders to donate back to it. And why that's significant is for Blue Earth County, I don't want to speak for Nicollet County, in the past and in the future, unless something changes here, we'd use those donated funds from the ridership to take care of maintenance and replace the vehicles, so we can continue the program for area residents. And so if the revenue continues to drop too, with the long-term ridership currently declining too as well, we might incur some difficulties in the future of being able to purchase ongoing vehicles. In collaboration with the Nicollet County Veteran Service Office, we kind of came up with a template for a memo to send out to some of the ridership to propose some potential changes. Kind of outline some of those things that I discussed about some of the background and then the recent changes. What we were looking at doing is having uniformity between the both counties and coming up with about a $20 flat fee. There was some discussion or some aversion to using the term fee versus donation, and just kind of the way, honestly, the history of the programs have worked. It's always been worded as a donation, and I'd say that in quotation marks, because in past, not under any of the current regimes, there's been people that have not provided that donation that have a travel reimbursement that have by either Nicollet County or Blue Earth County, you know, been not told to ride until they pay those donations in the past too. So that's donation, I think, has always been used with like a wink or quotation marks, and we're just trying to make our policy more open and transparent and uniform between both services. It's not uncommon for counties to charge a flat fee. Nicollet County's flat fee of donation, you could say, a flat fee of $10 has been in place for over a decade. Waseca County has one as well. Sherburne County and a few other counties do it too as well. There are some counties that completely subsidize it in the vehicle replacement. Also in the past, there are some counties that have relied on local service clubs within the county to donate and purchase vehicles for the county. We really don't see any of our area service clubs in that financial position. As far as a long-term funding mechanism for us, it seems a pretty unshaky path to follow. So what the discussion is going from a donation on our side, where we would be collecting either the travel pay or whatever they see fit, to just a flat rate regardless if they receive travel pay from the VA.
So can I ask a question?
Yep.
I don't mean to interrupt, because I don't want to lose it.
Yep.
So the veteran that's going up there actually gets some sort of reimbursement, or gets a fee back from the Veterans Administration.
Yep. Yeah, you actually read my mind. That's where I was going with my.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I've used the term enough. I figured I better explain it too. So, the VA reimburses those certain distances from the VA Medical Center in Minneapolis under certain VA eligibilities, travel reimbursement, and that reimbursement cost is for depreciation on their vehicles and fuel expenses incurred. They ride our transportation, Nicollet counties or Waseca counties or Brown counties, they're eligible for it, and they go up to the VA, they still receive it. So in the past, it had been recommended they donate that back to the county, since we were the ones incurring the depreciation and the costs on the fuel side of things. in the memo that we have, we kind of outline that if veterans are eligible for that travel reimbursement, we're requesting that they're the ones that, regardless of situation, that they still pay the $20 flat fee for those that don't receive travel reimbursement from the VA, and that $20 fee is in excess of something they can afford. Both mine and Nathan Tishnick, the county service officers' contact info is in that memo to discuss alternate payment or waiver of the fee in general. And kind of what we would base that off of is the VA also sets the tee up for us pretty easily. They have their own economic hardship thresholds where they waive fees or co-pays for vets that we have access to, and we know veterans fall in that healthcare priority group with the VA, so we can gladly review that on an individual basis if this goes forward.
Okay, that's kind of where I was headed too, because I didn't know if everybody got that or didn't get it. And we have veterans I know for sure that don't have a lot of money in our community. They're basically homeless, but they might need a ride to the VA hospital. And I didn't know if we would be hardcore on that $20 fee for them.
So really the economic threshold for a single individual that the VA waives co-payments on, they call it Priority Group 5, so they meet VA eligibility because of lack of income, is $41,000 for gross. So it's a pretty flexible program. Just because somebody is under that, they might still be eligible for travel pay, which if they're receiving travel pay for fuel expense and depreciation on a vehicle, we would still ask that even if they meet that threshold but they're being reimbursed for the travel, that they would still pay that $20 fee. Right now, currently, from Mankato, riders that ride our van, the VA travel reimbursement's about $60, so the veteran is still taking some home with them. There was some reservation about going away from past practices or some other county practices of collecting the whole fee with it. My personal stance on that is with the direct deposit and people's financial situations being different, if they're not receiving the $60 until 3 weeks, and if the VA botches it up 5 weeks later and they're fronting $60, not everyone is fortunate enough to have a positive balance in any of their accounts where they can float that going forward. So just sticking with a $20 flat fee, and also makes it easier on clerical staff in both offices for differing amounts. It's just the same, or you're waived, essentially.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just trying to know what's kind of your average ridership?
Last year we had 271 we transported. Nicollet County was about 243.
So you get maybe one or...
Well, we don't go every day of the week,
Right,
so we have about last year I want to say we had a decent amount of canceled trips due to weather too as well. That actual report on our average numbers I have in my annual report, which will be the next work session to cover with you guys. But so it kind of ranges from 2 to 6 a day, depending on.
Okay, I just figured it was probably at least maybe 2 or 3 or something.
Yep.
So that's what I was wondering. You do have a group of people that ride up together. I mean, you don't take, it's not singly or...
So on occasion we do have single riders.
I suppose it's only one person has to go up.
Yeah, and it really depends on availability. Providers with the clinics they're going to up in Minneapolis, and that's the one thing. Some of our riderships decreased too with the opening in 2011 of a VA clinic in Mankato, the Lyle C. Pearson up there off Premier Drive. That takes care of a lot of primary care, family practice type care for vets, preventative care. But Minneapolis is the closest specialty care hospital for any of the veterans with cardiology, oncology, and podiatry, the whole bit.
One more.
Okay, and then we got to get moving along here.
So you use volunteers to drive?
So the drivers that we have are subcontracted out, independent contractors with the county. Again, with the donation fee, like I said in the quotation marks, it's always been almost collected as a fee and referred to as a donation. The same thing goes for most volunteers. The VA uses the term volunteer for the drivers that operate county transportation programs because they get access as a volunteer to certain records, so they can track if a veteran's done with his appointment or not that they transport up there, or if they've left or checked out of the clinic, because when we transport them up there as a county, we're responsible for bringing them back too as well. So the term volunteer is really the agreement the drivers sign with the VA to get access to limited information. So they're subcontracted out or private contract.
So are the volunteers using their own vehicles?
No.
No, so it's a
van.
county vehicle or van and county gas and stuff like that that's being used? Okay.
Correct.
That's what I need. Thank you.
And I'm assuming, because you have a target date for March, it could be April, whatever it might be, you're going to bring this to the county board, you mentioned, in a work session, and we can talk further about it. Is that correct?
I plan on presenting this specific item here today. The next session I was referencing was the annual report.
Oh, the annual report. Okay.
Transportation changes are mentioned in that too as well. This is just a little bit more detail on it.
Mr. Chair, I think the plan originally was to ask the board to approve this fee today, but with the joint meeting with Nicollet County, they asked to have some discussion about it. And so we moved this to more of an informational item today, but we anticipate bringing back for approval that fee at a future board.
So we'll talk about it today.
Yes.
We're fully informed today.
Yeah, we'll have a joint meeting today with Nicollet County, so.
Yeah, this afternoon from my understanding.
Yep.
But that's kind of the background and where we are today.
Interesting.
So I really think, in my opinion, this will create uniformity and consistency, not only for the riders. Some of them get confused what day of the week they're going, if they're supposed to be $10, they're supposed to be donating their whole travel pay, or should I give you $15 today?
So work it out between the two counties so it's consistent.
Yep,
Yeah, it's the same
and
communication.
that March date too as well was just on the draft. That's something that can be shifted. We want to give a proper amount of time for a ridership to have time to come in and talk to us if they need that waived fee.
All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Well, at this point, Michael, I certainly would support this, so we'll talk with Nicollet this afternoon, and I appreciate the information, and it's nice to see you getting this stuff together. Thank you.
Yep, you did a good job, thanks.
Thank you.
And a side note real quick, kind of pulling an oddball, I got a notice too just for the board of an event tomorrow, and the only reason I'm bringing it up right now is because of the timeliness. February 7th at the American Legion in Lake Crystal tomorrow, the American Legion's national commander will be out there. They're doing a dinner and reception for her too as well. Many board members are out that area. Lake Crystal's got a nice club.
Yeah, they do.
Nice.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, we better invite Charlie Berg, our Information Technology Director, to come up here and look at the Microsoft Office contract renewal. He tried to get us a big discount, but I think that was very difficult to get from Microsoft. So.
He personally was talking with Bill Gates.
Well, thank you for the opportunity this morning. If you look at the memo that's in your packet, I'll just kind of summarize it briefly. What we're looking at is the renewal of our 3-year license and support contract with Microsoft. We're running up at the end of it. That'll end at the end of this month, end of February, so that needs to be renewed for another 3 years. And this proposed contract, as it mentions, covers 2 different types of software. It covers what we call the desktop software, which is basically Microsoft Office, the components that just about all of our employees use, which are Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, email, that type of thing. So it covers that Microsoft user desktop software. It also covers what we call server software. That's something that you usually don't see too much. It's in the background, but it runs all the big computer servers that sit in our data center that run and operate all of the big systems of the county, such as the property tax system, the finance system, things like that. So it's more back office or system software, whatever you'd want to call it. This includes operating systems. It also includes a lot of security software, which is becoming more important every day. So this proposed contract, as it mentions in the memo, will be done through the state of Minnesota Microsoft contract. It will use the discounted pricing, also the terms and conditions of that contract, and it will run for 3 years through the end of February of 2021. But the overall price that we are contracting for 3 years is broken up into 3 equal yearly payments. So we'll have 3 payments over the next 3 years. And just wanted to say here that the recommended vendor is obviously Microsoft, but they work through a reseller known as SHI. They're an authorized Microsoft reseller under the Minnesota contract. So the recommended contract here is with Microsoft and SHI for a total of $522,962. That's broken down into 3 equal yearly payments of approximately $174,000 each, and that's a not to exceed amount. The other thing I might note is that, this expense is budgeted in the IT operating budget, and the action that we're looking for today is approval of the Microsoft SHI contract for that total of $522,962, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You want to do a motion
We
first?
could do a
Chair?
motion so we have more discussion
moved.
about it.
So moved.
Okay, Vance, Kip, second. And so we have a motion on the table for approval, and if there's any discussion or questions or comments.
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
No, I appreciate all your work on this.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah,
you very much.
Appreciate your work too, Charlie. And the only question I have, just a real quick answer I'm sure you've got for us. It's 3 payments, it's a 3-year contract. If something were to change dramatically in our software world, we're committed to the 3 years regardless, or would we be able to, if something changed in 2 years, would we be able to get out of the last year of the contract, or is there any?
I believe we're, under the terms and conditions of the state of Minnesota contract, I believe we are committed to that 3 years.
3 years, okay.
I could certainly research that and get back to you.
Okay.
But once again, those terms and conditions are kind of out of our hands because we're working through that state
Yeah.
contract. I will take a look and get back to you.
I just didn't know if there was any type of out clause, if there was like a big drastic change in programs or something happened that, was. in
Yeah,
our
I'm pretty sure,
expectations.
when you sign up for a contract, you're signing up for
I
the
know,
full 3 years.
yeah.
So.
Wow.
And I don't see us going anywhere else in the next 3 years.
Technologically, you don't see something changing drastically in 3 years?
Technology changes every day, but, the foundation of our business is our Microsoft software, and
Okay.
I don't see any gigantic shifts happening, at least in that foundational stuff.
Okay, just wanted to ask you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Charlie.
I'd like to invite Scott Fickner, our Environmental Services Director, to come forward. And he's got a couple items of business here that we have to deal with. Oh, should we have it? Are you guys all right? Should we take it? Do we have time for one? What do you guys want to do?
We could take a break now, or you could take one after Scott is done, but,
Hold off.
Yeah, Scott's standing here. Let's go through here and
Let's
we'll
do it,
wait
Scott.
for
Yeah,
Scott.
Scott he wanted to sit here and discuss things for quite some time, I know.
Oh, yeah, it'll take several hours.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning, Scott.
As you've
Morning,
noted,
Scott.
we've got a couple of things for your board consideration. In your tab 6, we talk about the Minnesota Department of Agriculture Agricultural BMP, or Best Management Practices Loan Program. Since 2009, the Department of Agriculture has developed an agricultural best management loan program designed to provide low-income financing to farmers and rural landowners for implementation of agriculture and other best management practices to reduce environmental pollution. MDA manages the revolving loan fund and determines the loan allocation for each county annually. In 2014, the county board approved the appropriations for the loan program, and Environmental Services worked with the Department of Agriculture, Soil Water Conservation District, the County Taxpayer Services and Finance Departments to develop the program for septic systems. This has been a very positive program, and over that time we've loaned out $530,000 and produced 43 new septic systems. In 2016, the MDA clarified that these funds could be used for wells, drinking water projects. This loan program works exactly like the septic loan program, but it's used for constructing wells, sealing wells, and for water treatment equipment. The administrative policy, identical to the SSTS program policy, but for the water projects, has been developed and is included in your packet. The original board resolution to provide special assessment as security for loans issued under the Ag BMP loan program for the septics has also been included in your packets. And just extending the availability of the Ag BMP loan program to include water projects would be beneficial to the residents of rural Blue Earth County. There's 2 resolutions have been included for board consideration. The first resolution is to adopt the lender administrative policy for wells, well sealing, and/or water treatment system loans under the MDA program. And the second is on, the second resolution is to establish an application fee for the Ag BMP projects in general. The current fee is $150 for septic systems. We're recommending that the $150 be used for both wells and the septic system.
No. So you're gonna have a resolution first for the special assessment?
No, the special assessment was already approved in 2014 by the county board. The first resolution is basically to adopt the plan, administrative plan for the wells.
For the loan program.
For the loan program for the well and
Yeah.
water program.
From the Minnesota Department of Ag.
Right.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve this loan administrator program. And it's something we've been doing for quite some time anyway. Have they made some availabilities of these loans before in the past?
Yes, we've been doing the septic loan, but this would allow us to do the wells and,
Okay.
and well sealing
So
loans
it's moving
as
on,
well.
making them more, okay.
Yes.
All
Wonderful.
positive stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Right.
And Tim Grant is the one that takes care of all the well sealing and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So, any other discussion or informational? Wes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And let's move on then to the second item of business here.
The second
Excuse
issue.
me. I believe there's 2 resolutions.
Yeah, we gotta
One
do
is
the
on page
fee.
63
Right,
of your packet,
Yeah.
setting the policy.
Yep.
Then the next resolution on 64 sets the fee.
That's what we're moving on to right now.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were
Yeah.
moving on to his next.
Annual natural resources. Okay,
No,
I'll move the fee.
resolution.
I'll move the
Second.
fee.
So this is a motion and a second on the motion for the fee for the Ag BMP loan application.
Correct.
And for both of them, actually, because you already have one on the
Right.
SSTS, and now this will be for the water.
Correct. This basically just
Best
makes
management.
all BMP loans the $150 fee.
Yeah, sounds good. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
Thank
Thanks
you.
on that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Next in tab 7 is the Minnesota Natural Resources Block Grant Agreement. The NRBG agreement is a non-competitive 2-year grant. Counties have been receiving this grant for 20 years. It's administered by the Board of Water and Soil Resources, and it does include some money from the MPCA for funds. And it helps fund water management planning, Wetland Conservation Act program, shoreland management, and septic system programs. The grant requires $5,000 be passed through to the Soil Water Conservation District, and we've been doing that for over 20 years. And that's for participation in our WACA, or Wetland Conservation Act, Technical Evaluation Panel, and assistance with the WACA administration. Natural Resources Block Grant has been included in your packet along with a memo from Julie Conrad. And also in your packet is a resolution authorizing the Director of Environmental Services Department to act as an official signatory and authorized representative for the grant. In the past, Environmental Services Director has signed these agreements and fiscal documents, but a new Bowser requirement is that the official signatory must be an elected or appointed official of Blue Earth County or a person authorized by the Blue Earth County Board. Environmental Services is recommending the County Board approve the Natural Resources Block Grant and approve the resolution authorizing the Environmental Services Director to act as the official signatory.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second for this natural resource block grant agreement and for the signature. That would be you, wouldn't it, Scott?
Correct.
Yeah. So have that authority given to you by the board.
Right.
Okay. Is there any discussion or comments?
Nope.
That was something we talked about, wasn't it?
Right. Yep.
Just not too long ago. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Scott.
stuff. Okay, so now I think we'll just take a short break. All right. I'd like to invite Mr. Ryan Tilges up here to sit with us, our county engineer, and work on some public works issues here.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning, Ryan. Morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yourselves?
Good.
Good. We've got a relatively light agenda today. The first order of business is consideration of bids for two 2019 tandem axle trucks. Purchase was included in our annual budget for upkeep of our equipment. We had 4 bidders: North Central International, Westman Freightliner, Noose Truck and Equipment, bid 2 separate units, 1 Mack, 1 Volvo. The apparent low bidder was Westman Freightliner for both units, $248,668 as detailed in your board packet. With that being said, I would recommend award of the bids to Westman Freightliner.
So moved. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. And so is there any discussion about these 2 large trucks?
So is, you know, you've seen the trucks, you understand this much better than we do. Does this match and can do everything that you're expecting it to do?
We've been upgrading the specifications for power, for hill climbing and pushing those heavy loads of snow with a full box of sand and salt. We've also been looking at the length configuration, so we're getting a little bit more capacity in the boxes of the trucks. So the trucks are getting a little bigger than what we had conventionally used, but that's a benefit for us the rest of the season. It's a constraint in our shop for parking, but it's a benefit when we're out on the road. We're making the most of our ability to haul 80,000 pounds. We're actually able to have more cargo capacity or cubic yard availability in the trucks. So
nice.
Modernizing them, we're going to more of the rear-mounted wings with the hydraulics to optimize visibility out of the passenger side of the operator's cab. So
the bid here is for 2 of them.
2 units.
So you got $248,000 or $250,000. That's about $125,000 each.
Yes.
And that's including the dump body and the sanding equipment.
Yep, that includes the dump body, the lights, the hydraulics, the dump box, and the sander. We still have to purchase the wing and the plows.
Right.
And those will be bid via quotations. We generally have 3 to 4 companies that we go to for that. That's about $25,000 to $28,000 per truck in addition to the purchase price of the
But
truck.
really, for a truck of that size with the dump body and the sand, that $125,000, knowing the cost of those items these days, that's not a bad bid.
Yeah, and we're seeing less on the trade-ins, but it's because we're kind of falling behind. Our trucks are getting older. We're getting to the point where the unit's 2005, so we're really kind of pushing out into beyond that optimal 10 to 12 year window. We've got some trucks that by the time we're able to upcycle them will be 15 years old, so they're well beyond our expectation at the end of their service life.
That's good though. Have they had a lot of need for care? I mean, have they had...
You know, I know we just had to stick about $10,000 into replacing the transmission on one of our older units, but we still are hoping to get another 4 to 5 years out of service out of that truck. So it's the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And they're not cheap to repair.
Some of it, when you're in the private sector, sometimes you don't have that choice. You gotta, you're stuck doing it, yeah.
But on a vehicle that's $125,000 or $120,000, whatever it would be, $10,000 on a tranny seems like a pretty good deal, actually. It does.
Yep. And it's, like I say, it is what it is. You can't lose too much sleep over it at night.
No, I know. I mean, there's always going to be some kind of maintenance. But
is that coming from knowledge from somebody that knows how much a transmission costs in his car?
Yes. I currently, and without the car, I usually drive a tranny, went out.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And to get that, a good rebuilt one, in just a car, the value of my car is about $7,000.
Yep.
Would be $5,000.
Oh my.
And luckily, I have a board member that's helping me save a little money, and
it's good to know the right people, right?
Yeah.
Right, Kip?
That's right.
All right, so we digress a little bit here, but it's related, you know, the cost of our vehicles. So are there any other questions or comments about this? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Action item number 2 is consideration of a resolution to sponsor Mankato Township's Transportation Alternatives Grant application. This is the same grant application program that we had applied for our County State Aid Highway 16 pedestrian and bicycle trail. That's currently has been submitted and is under review and consideration. Mankato Township also submitted a grant application on their own behalf for salvaging, taking the Kern Bridge off of its current location and disassembling it and storing it for future use. One of the requirements of this grant application, because it is federally funded, is that those funds must be expended through a authorized local agency. The only local authorized agency to expend those funds on behalf of the township is Blue Earth County, because of our delegated contract process agreement that we have with MnDOT. So it requires us to act as project sponsor if they do receive the grant application. So what you see in your board packet is the resolution that requires approval for the county to act on behalf of the township if they receive those funds to administer the project. And secondly, draft resolution 1-2018, which was the resolution Mankato Township passed requesting that Blue Earth County sponsor their Transportation Alternatives Grant proposal. As a brief update on the TA grants, and Commissioner Campbell, I know I shot you an email with an update on where we're at with that. Okay, yesterday afternoon, I think I sent you an email response.
Okay.
The TA grant was submitted with the letter of intent was due in December. We submitted that. It was screened by the Mankato Area Planning Organization. We were given approval to submit the full grant application in January.
For the trail or for this?
For the trail.
Okay.
Also, both of these had to go through the same process.
Okay.
We submitted our trail grant letter of intent. We were screened by Maple. We were given the thumbs up to proceed with the full application. I submitted that in January prior to the due date. Just this past Friday, they have a screening board that's comprised of Region 9, Region 8, county engineers, also county commissioners, and I believe some city folks, city council members that go through and score and rank all of these projects. We did a brief presentation on the project and answered questions to the panel. So we're awaiting, it has to go to the ATP with their recommendation. Whether or not we'll receive the grant is uncertain yet at this point, and the Mankato Township project is in the same boat. We're not quite certain how we're going to pan out with our project. But that's where it's at.
Okay.
So this resolution is necessary for Mankato Township's grant to be considered, grant application to be considered valid.
I'll move is it just the one, or do you have to do the?
Just the one
Just the
resolution.
one
The other one was more informational, and it's already been executed by the township.
All right, yeah, I'll move asking for the grant.
Second.
For Mankato Township.
Okay, we have a motion for approval and a second. Is there some discussion or comments?
Mr. Chair, I just have one question.
Yes.
This be pass-through money, we would have no...
But yeah, my objective would be that the county would have little or no out-of-pocket cost. We would have a cooperative agreement with the township if this were approved, that any costs that are not covered by the grant would be the township's responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Does that include our in-house, like our staff?
Yeah, my objective, if this goes through, and I'm not terribly optimistic of the chance of it succeeding, but I think it's important that we support the township regardless. My objective would be that we pass through as much as possible and have consulting folks help out with it. We've certainly invested time and effort into this bridge and trying to find a home for it, and we continue to do that. But we would try to pass as much of it through as possible. We have a very full plate as our program stands this year.
I suppose the bottom line is whether the township does or doesn't do something about it, as the county, life and safety issues, we're still obligated to look at this, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Yep.
But because of the historic relevancy of the bridge, I think it's important that we continue to try to find an alternative, but that's been very challenging.
Yeah, I know. I did try to track down some information on it too yesterday afternoon, because the day can disappear, and I got stuff going on in the evening. And so I spoke with the chair of Mankato Township, Dan Rochadel, and he just helped fill in some gaps for me too.
Okay.
And he did tell me, I don't know if I should go on record with it or not, but he said that if they need some administrative dollars towards this or matching dollars, that that their township has agreed about $10,000, I think they'd be willing to put.
Plus some in-kind efforts in addition to that.
Plus some in-kind work?
South Bend Township owns the west half of the bridge.
Yep.
This is kind of veering off, but it's good supplemental information. South Bend Township owns the west half of the bridge, so the two townships need to get together.
Yeah.
If this grant doesn't come through, well, regardless, they both need to get together and figure out how much out of pocket they're willing to put towards
the
either
whole
salvaging
thing.
the bridge or paying for the removal of it.
Yeah.
We are working with some not-for-profit groups that are interested in saving the bridge. However, there's a tremendous financial gap between what the townships are willing to put forth and what
I
the
noticed
cost
that.
of the salvage is.
That's what I was gonna ask you, 'cause
it's on the order of $250,000 financial gap.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
And
and
you
that's
said-
just to save the bridge, not to put it back. By the time you put the bridge back and on new footings and abutments, you're talking about $1.25 million estimated.
Yep.
We've been there before.
We've been down that road
Yeah.
before, haven't we?
Yeah, Will got us caught up in that down there.
Wasn't so long ago.
His district down there.
We were fortunate to get some state bridge bonds to help with saving that old bridge, and this one is not eligible because of lack of transportation.
Yeah.
That it won't serve a transportation
Unless
purpose.
it's on a
even if
trail
we
or
were to
something.
Save it where it's
Yeah.
at. Yeah.
Anyway, he said that there, I don't know if there was a decision or just looked favorably that the other township you mentioned, South Bend is, no?
Yes.
Yeah,
That they're South Bend,
South Bend,
that
yeah.
they would also help contribute some funds towards administrative issues or whatever.
So I've tried to get them and these private interest groups together to come up with a
Solution for that.
agreement where effectively they would take ownership of the bridge and assume reliability if it were to collapse, and in the meantime they could work on fundraising to try to salvage it.
One more quick point, if it's all right. The total dollar amount requested, even though it might not get it, isn't it over $1 million?
I don't have their application.
Okay, he said it was 1.5 million.
That was the
And-
that was the total cost to save the bridge, disassemble it, refurbish all the members,
On their plan.
rebuild it as a new bridge
Right.
or as a refurbished
Somewhere
bridge
else.
somewhere else, which the hope has been that someday they'd put it on the new Mankato to St. Peter bicycle trail.
Oh, okay.
However, that project is not funded yet. The
Yeah.
study has been funded, but not the actual project.
Okay.
But they think they have a spot on their alignment through the Uniman property where this would be an ideal location
Okay.
for the bridge. But it's a little bit of a stretch until
Yeah.
the funding sources are nailed down
So they're hoping they get 200,000 or 300,000
to salvage it.
to pick it up and store it possibly on the riverbank until they can move ahead further. That's what it sounded like.
Yep,
I mean, they were
that's
hoping
correct.
that was going to happen.
That's correct.
Out of that 1.5 million, if they can get
Because of the
something to-
design of the bridge and the length of the bridge and the type of construction,
Yeah.
it's a very large crane is necessary to come in, and it effectively has to sit right in the middle of the river, so it requires an extensive amount of fill for a platform in the middle of the river
Yeah.
for one crane to pick it,
Yeah.
set it, and move it, because you can't pick on the top chords of the
Yeah.
bridge. You have to pick underneath the footings, which is going to be challenging to rig because all of the weight bears on those 4 bearing points.
Okay.
It's not like the Dodd Ford Bridge where it was a pin and truss.
Yeah.
This is a bowstring arch, so all
It's
the
got a
weight
real-
is transferred to the feet.
Yeah, it has this real gradual bow on top.
Yep, and that's not strong enough to necessarily pick up
Hold the
there.
whole thing. And it is about twice as big, or twice as long, I believe, than the Dodd Ford Bridge. It's about twice the spans.
Little, yeah, about 1.5.
Bigger.
One and a half.
I didn't realize it was that much bigger.
It's
but-
close to it.
It's about 190 feet long.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's close to 200 feet, so I
Yep.
mean, we're talking.
Yep.
Okay, well, any other concerns? Commissioners? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right. And then I've got some information items. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along. On some of our current construction projects, the Rapidan Dam, the contractor Kramer North America has relocated their coffer dam, which is also serving as their access road. They've installed upstream and downstream gates at the power generation units on the dam because there was seepage coming through there that required divers with a specialized unit for dredging, rental of a long reach excavator, so it's driving the contract price. There'll be some changes associated with that will be paid for. Those should be covered by the DNR grant agreement, and we do have some additional capacity in that grant agreement yet to complete the work. They've got a reasonable sized area now delineated, and they're working on dewatering that area, tentatively planning on pouring the remainder of it this Thursday. They'll have to leave a small, what we would call a sump area, unpoured, so that they can continue to pump out of that. And then their subsequent and should be final step of the project would be to, after the pour is done and that slab is cured for the apron, then they will have to isolate that sump area and fill in the remaining concrete in that location. So we found the bottom of the old apron that was poured in the early 2000s. We found the perimeter of the apron that was poured in 2011 and delineated those boundaries. We're putting in very large reinforcing steel into the existing apron laterally around, and we're also tapping into the underlying apron. I believe it's every 5 or 6 feet on a grid with epoxy grouted reinforcing anchors into that and tying a reinforcing steel cage into it all. So it's a very stout repair that should buy us considerable amount of time. So we're happy. We're not happy with how quickly it's going, but we're happy with what we deem the quality we think is going to be a better repair. So they continue to work on that, hopefully pouring this Thursday if weather cooperates.
That's for District 2, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Cold weather is good for slowing down river flows. It's not good for pumping water. The pumps, those diesel pumps, really struggle to operate well in these frigid conditions. Sub-zero is very challenging. The County Stated Highway 5 bridges number 07526, 7239, and 7240. Bridge, the south one, which is 07526 by Kasota Better Stone, it was poured, has been cured, the railing was mounted, and was reopened to traffic for the course of the winter. They've closed the 2 north bridges, removed the decks on 7239 and 7240. Saw cut the abutments for the new elevations, and they're in the process of forming that, adding the reinforcing steel, and should be pouring those new bridge decks within a few weeks. So that's progressing nicely over the course of the winter. Really haven't had much feedback as far as the minimal delays that we're putting out there, but it's a great time of year to do it with the lack of quarry traffic.
You just forced more of us to take 22, but that's okay. We like the heavy traffic on 22.
You've got the right guy's email to complain to.
Yeah. Doesn't do anything.
I'll forward it to the commissioner for the district.
That's what it is.
But yeah, it's considerably less traffic.
It's out of my district, so I'm doing okay.
So that's moving along fairly well. Planning projects update: the County State Highway 52 bridge just northeast of Mapleton. We're going to open bids February 28th for consideration at your March 13th board meeting. Work should begin in early April of 2018. That's been funded for the participating items, 50% state bridge bonds. County Stated Highway 1 from 9 to Mankato. For the entire project, we'll break it into 2 segments. The segment from County Stated Highway 90 to Mankato that we plan on pursuing in 2018 construction. The right-of-way acquisition is coming along very well. Jack's doing a great job with our right-of-way acquisition and working with the landowners out there. We are awaiting the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit. We would anticipate that by the end of February or early March. We'll be continuing to correspond with them, and you can only push so hard with them to get any type of response, but I think when they're aware that we are actively seeking it, it helps move it along a little bit quicker. The 100% plans have been submitted to MnDOT for their approval, so we would anticipate letting that in March ideally, if we get the Corps permit in. CSAH 9 to CSAH 90, the 2019 segment, Blue Earth County received and is currently reviewing the 90% plans. I'd like to bring that forward to you if you're interested at a future work session for review of the alignment, the right-of-way limits, things like that. So I'll be coordinating, bring that information in front of you. I don't think there's been really any significant changes per se since we looked at it at the 60% stage, but that's a brief update. And we continue to meet with some of the higher impact landowners, and we're beginning some of the right-of-way acquisition because of the temporary surcharge fill that we have to put in with the 2018 project in the chute area, and where we go through the new alignment just north of the chute. That is requiring some right-of-way acquisition for the current project, and as we talked about, that'll be closed for a couple of months while we put that surcharge in, and then we'll reopen that segment as a gravel road, but we should be able to provide access to the landowners throughout those stages of construction. County Road 109, paving plans are near completion. Tentatively plan to open bids for approval on the March 13th board meeting as well. So that's out there moving forward. CSAH 14 from Minnesota Highway 30 to CSAH 4. We are having an open house meeting tonight, as you may be aware. from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Public Works Building. So hopefully the frigid temperatures and a little bit of forecasted snow don't keep the good folks away from coming and visiting with us. That'll be open house format, no formal presentation, so it'll allow people to come and go as they please. And we'll have county staff as well as design staff from Bolton make there to answer questions and work with the landowners. We still need environmental permitting and right-of-way along with completion of the plans and specifications for the project, so we're realistically looking at April or more likely May bid letting for that project, so it's going to be out a little later than we desire, but there's quite a few pieces that have to come together yet. Pleasant Mountain Township, Township Road 91, Bridge 07508. Plans were will be submitted to MnDOT this week for approval. They've been recently completed, so it's going to be dependent on funding approval for that bridge as to when we pursue that. But that would be utilizing town bridge money and township funds to pay for the cost of that bridge with the county administering it. The Homeland Security Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Project on River Park Drive, Mr. Johnson property. The grant has been approved. So that was good. We can start hiring appraisers, asbestos and hazardous waste material testing, and a legal firm for the title work. We've got all three on board. American Engineering Testing went out, took samples throughout the house for asbestos and hazardous materials. They're analyzing those as we speak. An appraiser has visited the property, is working on their report, so we can use that for the purchase price. So our objective would be in March that we can set up the closing of the home, the bid letting first, closing of the home and award of the contract consecutively, so that we'd open bids and literally within a day we'd buy the property and then award the contract and expedite the approval of the contract throughout the county, so that we could get that contractor going immediately and push the responsibility should anything happen on to the folks that are responsible for removing it. The DNR did just inform me too that they're going to have a little bit more money. I think we're going to get about another $8,500 towards the project. So it's good to stay in touch with those emergency management folks, because they're definitely looking for responsible people to implement those funds. And last item is the St. Clair shop. We hired INS Group for design and project management of the shop renovation. They've conducted a shop walkthrough last week. Yes, asked a lot of good questions, and we're moving towards putting that onto design and getting that contract underway too. So we're excited for that upgrade, sorely needed upgrade.
But they're excited about it too, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there any other ones that we haven't done yet then, no?
That would leave Lake Crystal and
Good Thunder.
Good Thunder shops.
Good Thunder, yeah.
Yep, so 3 out of 5, so 2 more to go. But
Well, that's good.
Staff definitely appreciate it. It's great projects, good use of the existing structures. So
You guys didn't have to arm wrestle over who was next in line. I mean, I'm just wondering. Okay.
That's based on good behavior, I think.
I'll leave that one alone. Is there any questions before I leave?
How are things coming with the number one, planning? I'm sure you guys are still actively working on that and trying to get logistics.
Absolutely. So with respect to the project coordination for phasing, it is going to be very challenging, as we talked about, and it's broken into 4 or 5 different construction phases with the intent of keeping access to the citizens either one way or the other out of the project. The reinforced soil slope walls are challenging because they have to be built up in layers. So we've worked with SRF and incorporated into the plan set a staging and sequencing plan. We've also done a critical path contractor style look at how to construct it. So that will really help us as we get into the contractors providing their critical path management and their intended sequence of events, so that we can analyze it against ours. And that'll help us, we think, manage the project a little bit more efficiently as we move into construction. And if the contractor comes to us with a different method of constructing the project versus what we've got in the plan, it'll also give us a good basis to justify whether or not we want to approve their methodology.
Sure. That's a 2-year project basically on County Road 1 between Mankato and CASA 90.
Correct.
Is there going to be during the winter, next winter, or is there going to be gravel roads?
The intent would be to get as much of it paved as possible, but there's a potential that it would be some gravel. A lot of those areas with the RSS slopes, those will have to be at least brought back to the point where the guardrail is returned, and because those are urban sections, leaving them gravel is a little trickier because it creates somewhat of a bird bath
Yeah,
that you don't want.
That's, I mean, obviously we have to concern ourselves with people living on the road and everything,
Absolutely.
but, you know, winter time with that being a gravel road would be
Absolutely.
interesting,
It would
to
be
say the
return it
least.
to a good level of serviceability, and again, with Mother Nature playing a tremendous role in our operation, sometimes it's very challenging to forecast where we'll land. You know, one of the other events is that we will have to reconstruct the segment of the Red Jacket Trail from north of Mount Cato for about, I believe it's a little under a half a mile or a quarter of a mile. And that will be disruptive to some of the events that are going on. I know there's a high likelihood that it'll conflict with the Mankato River Ramble.
Oh, wow.
But it's tough, and we'll do our best to work around it, but we're trying to make the most of the working days that we do have.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Ryan.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks,
Have a good
Ryan.
Well, next up on our agenda, we've got our county attorney, Mr. Pat McDermott. Welcome, Pat.
Morning, Pat.
Morning, Pat.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. I know that you've had ample time to review the report, the yearly report. I'll answer any questions. I just wanted to highlight a handful of items that, comparing from last year to this year. Within that, you know, we continue to try to figure out ways for innovation, for pursuing being proactive out there, in particular with our truancy program, our Veterans Court, Drug Court, those types of things, to try to take care of these issues before we have to put people in jail and whatnot. But I think it's important for you also to know that we handled in our office over 5,600 cases last year. Again, over 8,000 hearings, and there's many hearings on a daily basis that aren't included in that number because of the jail custody roster and what we need to do when people are in custody. We had over almost 550 in custody cases last year as well. But one thing I did point out, I was able to sit down and meet in the last couple of weeks ago with the judges, the fact that we saved almost 600 hearings last year compared to the year before, and that's another drive. It's difficult sometimes, especially in the criminal justice system, to be efficient because it's a system that is designed constitutionally to be inefficient. But those are some of the things that we've been working on in addition to that as well. What's not included in some of the numbers is you'll see that our felony caseload again went up, and just as a reminder, our adult criminal cases is where over half of our office resources end up being dedicated to because of the nature of the cases and the crimes involved. But within that, because of the changes in 2016 to the drug sentencing laws, we had 51 cases that are gross misdemeanor, fifth-degree controlled substance crimes this past year versus years past they would have been felonies. We continue making our efforts with our Children's Advocacy Center. I know that a couple of you have been involved in the meetings in some of those areas, and we continue in those efforts. Actually, we were able to send, because of the grant that we have in place, send one prosecutor, one investigator, and a child protection worker to the national conference, which was just last week, and it was very beneficial. I've talked to two of those three individuals just to make sure that it was worth their time and worth the effort that they put into it. And it was, even though it was in San Diego, they didn't have time to do anything. It started right away on Sunday, and the classes started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and some classes didn't get done until 6:30 in the evening. So there was not much downtime, let's just put it that way. Sounds like an average NACO
No,
conference.
I know how that
Right.
goes.
You know, you think you're going to go someplace where you can look out and enjoy the weather from the next when you get to the window.
It's true.
It doesn't happen.
No. And one thing, and I don't know if anybody picked up on it, but I do want to point out, you know, if you look just comparative numbers to numbers to numbers, it appears that our truancies are going up. Yes, they are. And there's a reason for that, in my opinion, and a lot of that has to do because once we started that program, the school districts have responded very well, and they have been utilizing those services. They came back to us after the first year and said, look, this is having a good impact. We would like to increase this or include it into the middle schools and junior highs. And so we've done that. We've dedicated more time to do that, so therefore actually our numbers have gone up. We're working with Josh Milo on probation actually to implement, hopefully within the next couple of months, more of a diversion from court. Before we get into court, we're going to step up and try to take care of those things before we have to get the judges involved and whatnot. So we continue to utilize in those areas. And the primary reason for that is, you know, truancy is still the leading indicator of future criminal behavior. I had somebody ask me recently in one of my presentations regarding, well, how can you quantify this? Well, the national statistics will show you that approximately about 60% of individuals in federal prisons don't have a high school diploma. Excuse me. And just generally from an overall standpoint, a person with a high school diploma versus a high school dropout will earn in his or her lifetime at least $1 million more in earning power. And so if you just do the simple math and the taxes, 20 to 30%, well, hopefully we've just gained society $200,000 to $300,000 in their lifetime. So if there's any specific questions or areas that you have, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. I will mention to you, I have updated, I gave the presentation to each of you last year relating to comparing us and the comparables to our neighbors and surrounding counties, to counties of similar size and population wise, and then to the regional outstate centers, plus with the college towns, so to speak, to try to figure out what drives what we end up doing. And actually I presented that, I made a presentation for the first time in a large group to the Lifelong Learners group a week and a half ago, and Commissioner Sternberg was at that presentation. But I'm willing to sit down again this year and show you some of those numbers, because we're up in some areas and down in some areas. But from a per 100,000 population, we are not out of whack with any other county or any other college town, and it still boils down to, in my opinion, what makes the most sense of what drives us in many areas. And I think this spills over into, you know, we're a growing community, whether it spills over into human services, obviously with probation, other departments in the county. We are still the youngest county in the state, and the last information available, we still have the highest retail sales per capita in the state. And so we've got many people, again, Greater Mankato Growth would say we've got 250,000 people coming in and out of this community on a daily basis. So there's many factors that push what drives our statistics in our office, and those to me are the main ones. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
Anybody have any questions on the board?
I don't, but thank you, Pat, for that report.
Thank you.
I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Will.
I just want to thank you for your continuous flow of information and commend you for the reporting you've done to the board. It is just certainly much easier to make decisions with the information you provide us.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to echo something too, Pat.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you was it a week or two ago, 2 weeks ago, you gave us the full report.
Yep.
And I read through that, and there's a lot of things that people don't know, that, you know, that the attorney's office has their work plans on. I mean, they have to work with all these different issues in our community, and I was happy to see that you had developed some of those programs, the truancy program, and this effort you have now too for this mental health, or what's it called, the Children's Project here in the
Child Advocacy Center.
Child Advocacy Center.
Yes.
And that you mentioned the fact even that you're cognizant of the issues with families and children, and whenever you focus in on something, an issue, you're probably gonna see an increase I think on the data side.
Sure.
Because otherwise it's being ignored and not really dealt with.
Right.
And so once you start dealing with something, there's usually an increase, even in one human being, when you focus in on one behavior, sometimes those behaviors increase.
Right.
But I mean, I think on the data side, that it might not look good at first, but in the end, it's healthy, because you're identifying families that need help.
Right.
You're identifying, there's a reason that there's problems, those kids aren't showing up for school, or they're having issues, and I think we've got, hopefully, adequate resources in our community to deal with those things. You know, that we can continually develop resources, because the more you can do upstream, like you were mentioning.
Correct.
They become a criminal or can't
Yep.
survive on their own because they don't have a high school diploma, or they don't, those things, those tend to become failures in life.
Well, those hidden costs to society. It's easy for you, for example, to look at the budget and say, well, we need to cut this or we need to cut that. But it's those things that we don't see, that you make decisions today that from that standpoint you may not see the benefits for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And you in all likelihood maybe you'll be retired by the time you see the benefit. But when we focus our efforts in some of these areas, the cost savings in the future cost savings is what we need to keep in mind as well.
And the human impact.
Correct.
And you work closely with Josh's department too, don't you? On
Yes.
a lot of those issues, don't you?
Yes.
Our corrections staff. Okay. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've got, let's see here, what time is it? It's about 8 minutes to 11. And we've got administrative services up next, don't we?
Yes, Mr. Chair, first item is the county board minutes for January 23rd.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the county board minutes. Are there any additions, subtractions, or discussion items? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Got the bills?
I would move the bills.
Second.
Vance moves the bills, and Kip seconds the bills. Are there any comments or questions for Bob?
I see the big one was with Kramer North America, but it pretty much said it was for the Rapidan Dam, so you're gonna get $500,000 there, but.
Yep.
But it's, so there's no question.
Right.
We know what it's for,
That
but thank
one's
you.
clear.
Anybody else?
That made it very clear, having that in the description, so.
The other one I've got is was a right-of-way and damages, two different amounts next to each other for the Burton family, and I was just wondering what project that was on. Week 2, sorry, week 2.
Sure. That was on CASA 1.
Oh, so that's out, the old 66 out that way.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else?
I don't have any questions.
No. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Item number 12 in your packet, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just informational items for you today. We've filled 2 custody officer positions, as well as a public health nurse. And then we've had a promotion in our license center to add a lead worker role in that particular service area. So be happy to answer any questions that the board has. If you have any?
Board have any questions on the human resource?
Nope.
Okay.
Item number 13 then, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is the fourth quarter donations. I see we have a typo at the top. It should be 2017, October through December. I apologize for that.
All right.
Most of the donations, again, are at the library and the different branches, but then we also did receive a $5,000 donation from Alliance Pipeline for the Sheriff's Department to purchase AEDs. And so that made up about half of the quarterly donations. You also see in-kind donations, especially for the library. as well as volunteer time. And so we're recommending the board accept those donations.
Move to approve.
Second.
We had a motion for approval and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And I suppose we go on to our commissioner reports and committees and things that we're due. Who would like to start today?
I'd be happy to start.
All right,
Chair.
Commissioner Brunder.
After the last board meeting, we had our EMS meeting. Things are going fairly well there. We did approve a lobbyist to help us out this year. We thought that was very important to have a lobbyist this year because Tony Cornish will not be up there, and he was always a good advocate for EMS and did several things in the last couple years. Not so much to get us extra fundings, but to keep things from getting pushed down to us that we didn't want. So we just thought it was important to have a representative up there, and they'll be working with several other lobbyists also. The cost is about $3,500, so it's not like we're spending a lot of money on it, but just to have that connection we thought was important. We were all at the work session. I thought that went very well. I think that was worth 4 hours of our time. I did notice a little bit this morning, we haven't quite gotten the hang of acknowledging the chair to speak yet, but we'll get through that. But I think the program was very well done. Roger did a good job. I think we had good input from the board members, and it was a good discussion. After that, I had my Warm Your Hearts fundraising meeting. We got about 18 people coming to serve different soups for the program on March 10th.
Yep.
I know I've been in contact with several of you to see who's coming, so I'll have to get that dialed in here in the next couple days. But they have some entertainment, hypnotist and comedian type thing for after that. So that y'all have been there before, so if you are coming again, it's always a good time. And yesterday I had my MRCI meeting, and everything's going fairly well there. We ended up ending out the year fairly good. Candy business is picking up, and things seem to be moving along fairly well there. And then several other constituent meetings with some farmers and some related ditch issues and stuff coming up. But other than that, it brings me up today, Mr. Chair.
That's very good. Mark, would you like to go next?
Excuse me, January 25th, I had our monthly Partners for Affordable Housing meeting. And of course, we're gearing up for Pedal Past Poverty on Saturday, February 24th. And I'm always taking donations because I have a team. I have to raise money anyway, but trying to get more sponsors yet. But yep, so that's our big thing, our focus now. Do that because that's our signature largest fundraiser for our Partners for Affordable Housing. So, other things we are exploring other alternative or other like shelters of some kind, but they're long-range planning for that. And then Saturday, February 27th, actually Kip and the county attorney and Vance was there. The soup for the troops.
Oh, I forgot that.
Downtown there for the Eagle, the Elks put on.
That was a good time.
Yep. And then the high functioning on the 30th, as Kip said, and yeah, I even noticed this morning that we need to address the chair.
Take time.
Yep. But we're working on it. We're cognizant of that.
Yep.
And then January 31st, Maple had, our Mankato Area Planning Organization had an ADA, kind of a open house for that, because with you get federal funds and they have to look at the whole Maple area, which is of course Mankato, North Mankato, and actually a couple of, I don't know if they get into the townships, but they even included Skyline, and what it is, you have to do inventory of places where you need access for people with disabilities, and of course Skyline we have no curbs really, so they didn't spend much time there. But there are a lot of areas, and of course the open house showed different areas of town, particularly the older parts like downtown, where they have to put on a priority list on like steps or curbs or things that are broken up, whatever, that kind of thing. So they have to we have to submit that to the feds. So then well, that actually then concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Purvis?
Yes, on the 29th, I had the Rural Minnesota Energy Board in Slayton. We chose our officers for 2018 and did some just general work for the year. Of course, then we had the work session on the 30th. Again, excellent work session. On the 31st, I was in St. James for the One Watershed, One Plan for the Watonwan River watershed. A good meeting and well attended, and we met right across the street from where the shooting was, and I'm happy to report we got out of there about a half an hour before that happened. So
Really?
I was glad that we got out of there on time. So, and then yesterday I had I had my monthly briefing with the Crystal Seasons folks, and then Carol Clark and I were at the Lake Crystal Towers, and we visited with the folks there about the True Transit system, gave them some information. They had been kind of one of our test projects that we have been running a route since last summer for them once a week, and we're transitioning that into a regular route now.
Nice.
I would encourage you to get some of the pamphlets. I've had a lot of questions in my area. I've seen some of these floating around the building here, but I would encourage you to get one of these, get some of these informational pamphlets, and pass them out to the folks that might have questions for you. This is an excellent pamphlet that shows the routes and costs and stuff like that. So that ends my report.
That's very good. Thank you. Okay, I think we've got one more at the end over here.
Well,
Commissioner
before
Sternberg.
yours, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, after our board meeting, me and you met with Josh concerning our
Yes.
NACO Ledge Conference
Yep.
coming up. And then I went to a meeting over at the Children's Museum of Lifelong Learners where Pat gave his talk, and it's always great to listen to Pat. He has some amazing information on how things are going in this area, and talking about low income and what it actually means, and he goes beyond being a county attorney and does a lot of work for the county on different methods. So thank you, Pat. On January 24th, the next day, I had an airport commission. We had TKDA engineering and planning talk about the future expansion possibilities for the airport. It was always interesting on how that's going to happen, and of course all it takes is money, but it's the airport has been doing amazing over the years. What they've been doing with MSU for pilot training and everything is they have a lot of flights coming in and out of that airport. It's people just don't understand how much. And another big information is they're going to have an air show next year again.
Really?
So an air show in 2019.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive, and for a small airport to be able to have air shows as often as we do, it shows that, number one, they have a good planning, and they have a lot of support from the surrounding area.
Do you already have the big act already?
I think they have the Thunderbirds, or I'm not sure which ones, but they got one of the military.
Even if they got the Army with the paratroopers, the Knights, I think.
I wouldn't doubt they've had them every year that I've seen them.
I know they're not the.
Yeah.
They're cool.
Interesting stuff, though. On the 25th, then, I had a NACO Transportation Steering Committee call-in. On the 27th, of course, I met with Mark and Kip over at Loose Moose for the Soups for Troops, and that was always an impressive thing. And Patrick, that's right, Patrick was there too. And then on the 29th, I had a Transportation Alliance Legislative Committee meeting, and then after that meeting, I had a board meeting for the Transportation Alliance up in St. Paul. And I was able to get back in time for a diversity board meeting here in Mankato. So I had a full day that day. On the 30th, then we had our work session with Robert Enert. Is that we pronounce it? Is it Enert? Reiner.
Yeah.
Good meeting. It's always great to sit down and listen, and we're trying to ask the chair when we should talk. Sometimes
We'll get it.
Old habits.
You can ask, just don't wait for permission.
I noticed that everything, all these things were put to the end of the session. That was one change that happened. You notice that? And then we had election canvassing. Me and Drew had election canvassing after that time.
Forgot about that. Yep.
And then yesterday I went to an open house at the Lake Crystal City Hall and a new Blue Earth County Library expansion that's connected to the City Hall in Lake Crystal. Being a county library board member, I went over there and took a look at that, and really impressive with what Lake Crystal has done. I look back 41 years ago when I started as a police officer in Lake Crystal, and how much changes that city has done. They've done a very good job. Pretty impressed, and so that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I've got my report. I'll keep it short and sweet. We had our board meeting on January 23rd, and like Vance said, we had a little quick meeting with Josh to talk about planning our NACO legislative conference, which will be in Washington, D.C. the first week of March. January 24th, I just want to mention I did go to the Vine board meeting. It's at 7:30 in the morning, once a month. And the reason I mentioned that is because we also did a review of our True Transit Advisory Committee, and some of the work that we did there, just approving and looking at the rates and things like that they've got set up, and the usage. And then on the 29th, Monday, I met with Scott Fichtner, our county environmental director, and also with Julie Conrad and Tim Grant, just to talk about this some of the issues people are talking about around the state, this well testing program from the Department of Ag, just to help clarify things and learn more. I wanted to learn more about it. So that was a good meeting. Also on that day, I don't know if anybody mentioned it yet, but I might have forgot about it, but I know Kip was there, Bob was there, Phil, our Human Service Director, and Angie, the assistant we've got there, and Kelly Hayter, our Public Health Supervisor, was there. So we were at the MSU. They had a Dr. Ron Manderscheid who came and spoke, and he's the Executive Director of the National Association of County Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability Directors. They call it NACBID, I believe. And he's also Executive Director of the National Association of Rural Mental Health, Adjunct Professor at the Department of Mental Health. I mean, the list goes on and on. He works with a lot of people and speaks to a lot of people and talks about health. He addressed the social determinants of health when we were there a little bit. Just having one, sometimes frailty in your life can reduce your lifespan. The quality of your health is greatly impacted by things in our lives. Living with not enough money generally can shorten your life and your quality of life. And he just went on and had a lot of stats that he talked about. How our lives are impacted by how we live, and if we don't have access to things in our lives. And so I thought that was a wonderful evening. I wanted to say a thanks to the MSU Social Work Department. There was what was her name? Jennifer? Yeah. Andrashko.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know who that? Oh.
Yeah, I'm working with her on our Community Advocacy Center and with actually the Social Work Department and a few others as well.
Oh, good.
So.
Yeah, and so she was nice enough to send reminders out. I believe she even called all of us, left messages on our phones. So and it rang true with me because I'm working a lot with public health lately, and it's expanding my mind as to how much public health issues relate to almost every decision that we make as a board, whether it's a bridge problem or redoing a road or whatever it might be, building a building. There's some impact of public health in there that we need to consider. And then the 30th, of course, our work session on high-functioning boards. I don't know if we're high-functioning, but we're getting there. But he did give us some kudos, didn't he?
He did.
He said that even though we all don't get along, we really do well at working together. No, I'm kidding.
He said we passed kindergarten. We all learned we learned a lot how to get along.
Yeah.
We passed kindergarten.
Well, and he said, he even acknowledged humor, that was important to have a sense of humor, and he also acknowledged the fact that since we go out after our board meetings and we decompress and apologize to one another. No, we have lunch together. Sorry, but we do, we try to work it out, you know what I mean? So he gave us some kudos on that. And I think some of his goals and visions for county boards or for any board were very good. And that agenda that he gave us, I plan on keeping to look at because it had some good points on there for us to remind each other of. So thank you, Ron Reinert, for coming and doing that. Also, on the 31st, I went to my TZD, South Central with MnDOT, and I just want to mention one thing from there. We usually talk about the fatalities, and I want to tell you that in 2016, Minnesota had 392 fatalities, which were related to car accidents on our roads or motorcycle accidents. And in 17, we had 358, which is actually 34 fewer. That's not a solid number because in January they're not sure. There could be somebody that's nursing an injury, so the solid numbers don't come in until I think the end of February. They get for 17, but that's still
a significant
something.
number.
34 human beings that didn't die last year. That number from 16, which is it's coming down, and I really applaud the efforts of all of our.
I remember when we started TZD, and I was going to the conferences, and we were working on trying to get below 400.
Oh, I bet.
And that was one of the goals. There was something 400. We tried. So being that 2 years in a row now that we've been below
Under
400,
that.
we always try to get down to zero because nobody wants to have.
That's what the zero is.
Nobody wants to have their parents or children or somebody being in one of those accidents. But no, I think the state of Minnesota and what we've been doing here in Blue Earth County for safety on the roads has been very good, very, very proactive.
Yes. And I been working with that since I've been on the board, pretty much since it was handed off to me. I don't know if it was you, Will, that gave it to me, or who was it? Somebody handed it off to me.
I don't think I ever
Really?
had it.
Maybe we never had it.
I don't think you ever had it.
Was it?
I think you just kind of jumped into it.
Oh, okay. Well, somebody invited me to go, and
that's wonderful.
Well, I thought it was something through Region 9, wasn't it?
I don't believe
With
so.
your transportation stuff you did?
It didn't. No, No, I thought somebody had been going, but
You're just a Renaissance man.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, now we're developing our Safe Roads program also here for Nicollet County and Blue Earth County, so it's an additional 2-3 hours sometimes a month working with those issues too, I want to tell you.
Well, you represent us well, Drew. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying that. I do want to say too, I just volunteered over the weekend because we talk about homeless issues and housing issues, and it was a cold weekend, and so Vine has a vehicle that was given to them by Bethlehem Lutheran Church to be used for community purposes. And so I'm a volunteer driver, and I drove some homeless folks to that mobile, kind of a mobile, each church takes their time. There's 6 churches involved, and so they spend the night at one church for a week at a time, and they get a meal there and things. So a couple of runs of folks up there from downtown, and then had a meeting yesterday with Bob Meyer to iron out some things and talk about the county concerns. And then today we're meeting with Nicollet County. So we better get moving pretty soon here. But we're good. Is there anything else? I mean, we still got a little bit of time. Is there anything else for the good of the order that we have for today?
I think we're doing
Well, I'm going to be missing that meeting.
How are you?
I have a meeting with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce that I have to be at 2 o'clock up in St. Paul. So,
Oh, wow.
So I won't be able to meet you at 12:30 with
Okay.
you, but I know that the four of you will represent the county very well, so.
Well, let's keep your ears open up there and speak well for us, because I know that they're concerned about also marketing our rural Minnesota, you know, and all the wonderful things that we've got to offer in our small communities that we have, including parks and things like that, so, for the chamber. Okay, anything else? So, are we gonna adjourn today, Bob, or are we?
Recess.
Recess,
I would
okay.
move to recess.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to recess and a second. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll recess then until we meet with the Nicollet County Board.